It's a mailbag episode. We got questions about which of the Blazers 4 guards should they keep, the development of Nassir Little and Anfernee Simons, and which Trailblazers jersey I would bring back from the dead. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazer reporter, Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and now also on YouTube. If you're listening to my voice, go subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also, thanks for making the show your first listen every day. It's free wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube 5 days a week, the only daily Trailblazers podcast. Every single weekday, you can stay up on what's happening with the Trailblazers, so make it part of daily routine. If it's your first listen, and if it's not your first listen every day, make it your first listen every day. Today's episode is a mailbag episode, like we do each week, answering listener submitted questions all episode long. If you want to get involved in a future mailbag episode, there are two ways to do it. Tweet at me at Mike G. Rich. Just send me a tweet and everything. If it helps if you indicate that it's a mailbag question, or watch my Twitter feed on the day of the show. Kind of bounce around, to be quite honest, but if you just check my Twitter feed, I'll send out a tweet soliciting questions day of the show. And if you respond to that tweet, I'll get you in the show or I'll get you in a future show. If you're not a Twitter user or someone who doesn't tweet, you can email me lockedonblazerpod@gmail.com. That is lockedonblazerpod@gmail.com is the address. That's the two ways to do it. Like I said, we do this every week. It's a ton of fun. And neither rain, nor snow, nor heat, nor gloom of night stays mailbag from your ears. So let's get into it. The first question comes from a whole bunch of folks. Listener Nathan, listener Blazers Rose 47 at Blazers Rose 47 on Twitter, listener Skyhook Line and Sinker at Skyhook_NBA on Twitter, and Zach at Zach Backpacks on Twitter all asks some version of the same question. And quite frankly, I think this is the biggest question facing the Blazers right now. This question is the wording from Skyhook Line and Sinker, and it reads, now that we, that's a collective pronoun, seem to have 4 legitimate combo guards on the team, what combination of 2 do you think could form the most productive tandem? Other questions involved like, which are the most productive tandem? Who do you trade? What would a trade package look like? So let's just kind of talk through the Blazers situation. This has been the case since the beginning of the season, and it's only gotten more real as the season has gone on. The Blazers' 4 best offensive players are 4 6'3" guards. Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, Norman Powell, and Anfernee Simons. And last year, the 3-guard group looked pretty good through the regular season. The last 25 games of the regular season, that was an elite offense, and it really worked. For whatever reason, and a large part of that whatever reason is that Damian Lillard wasn't healthy and wasn't himself, that starting group of the trio of Dame, Norm, and CJ just didn't work. It didn't work, and it certainly doesn't work with the sort of style I think that Chauncey Billups wants to play on defense. His style needs more length. It needs more sort of defensive acumen and want to on most nights. If you have a bunch of offense first guys, and Norman Powell is like being asked to be the Blazers sort of like big defensive guy, but his skill is being an offense first guy. Like he would be best utilized as that. And the other 3 are just straight up offensive first players. You're going to have limitations. And this year it caught up with the Blazers that group and that quartet is untenable moving forward. So I think they've reached a point where they can only bring 2 back. Like next year, maybe the sort of the trade market and all that forces them to bring 3 back. Hell, it could force them to bring all 4 back. I guess it seems unlikely, but I think you've really got to a point where you can only bring 2 back. The franchise is not going to trade Damian Lillard. That's not on the table. He doesn't want to leave. They don't want to trade him. That's not going to happen. So really, we will talk about that more in a moment. But so really, you're choosing Ant, Norm, CJ, and you got to basically keep 1. I think it would be, I don't know if malpractice is the right word, but it would be bizarre for the Blazers to come back next season with Dame and CJ both on the roster. Just truly bizarre. For after all this and this sort of all the changes this team has gone through, some mostly forced and some by choice, or I guess there will be by choice at the trade deadline, to have CJ come back. I don't know if he gets traded in February, but it would be weird if he's back here in the fall, just because how can you continue this experiment, right? Like you kind of know what it's going to be. If they know what it's going to be and they're cool with being the 5th or 7th best team in the West, I mean, fine by me, but like, it is what it is. Like you're kind of admitting your ceiling, I think. So I think you got to try to move CJ and make an upgrade there. Not an easy thing to do. He makes $30 million. He's going to make over $30 million for each of the next 2 seasons, $30 million annually. And he'll make that each of the next 2 seasons. After this one, still 2 and like $65 million, $66 million on his contract. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. He probably isn't, quote unquote, good enough for that kind of money, but they gave him the money. It is what it is. That's how much he's going to get paid. So, the question is, what can you get for CJ McCollum? I think you have to trade him and explore that. Then I think you should, the most pertinent move would be to explore a Norman Powell trade, because he's a veteran. He's got 4 years left on his deal. That's a lot of Norman Powell, but he's pretty good. And the deal isn't crazy unpalatable. He's being paid like a starting player in the league, and Norman Powell is productive enough to being a starting player in the league. Maybe you could argue that his age 32, the final season of his contract, isn't a great deal, but teams that are going to trade for a veteran, Norm's age, are going to want him to be good next year and good the year after. And he's certainly going to deliver that. He's been the Blazers' most consistent offensive player this season. So I think by process of elimination, the person that I would choose to keep is Anfernee Simons out of this group, because I think his upside is the highest. And I think he has the chance to be the best of those 3 basketball players. Anfernee Simons, if he ends up having a career as good as CJ McCollum, he had a very good NBA career. Don't get it twisted. He isn't as good as CJ yet, and he certainly hasn't been as productive for as close to as long. And when CJ had his breakout year, he was just straight up better than Ant is right now. Do not get it twisted. That is all true. But Ant is 22. He's shown some real growth in January. We're 3 weeks into the super breakout, and he's averaging 26 and 6. Like he looks really good. He's on his way. Like he could be a really special player. The problem is, and where you get back to, is that the Dame and Ant pairing isn't better than the Dame and CJ pairing. In fact, it's nearly identical than the Dame and CJ pairing. So the best sort of pairing would be probably to keep Norm, right? So Norm is probably a better fit as a 2 next to Dame, because he's a little more defensively inclined. His ceiling significantly lower than Ant. And I am a talent guy. I would say always keep the talent. So, and figure out the fit later, admitting that the fit is bad. And the fit is almost identical to the last decade of Blazers basketball, 7 years of Blazer basketball. Like, it would be a strange place to land Dame and Ant after 7 seasons of Dame and CJ. Certainly would be a bizarre spot to land. So I think what this all illustrates is that whoever they exchange for Norman Powell, whoever they might exchange for CJ McCollum, it becomes incredibly important that those are big defensive wings or forwards, guys who are 6'6" to 6'10", can defend, can handle a little bit, and can shoot, because you're going to really have to complement the smaller guard pairing, whoever it might be, with better defense. Not that I think Ant or Norm, or even CJ to some extent, but CJ certainly smaller and less physical than Norm. It's not like Ant is way too small to play shooting guard. He's just not a very good defensive player. So you have to complement him with better defensive pairings. It's tough. I think you choose Dame and Ant because those are your 2 best players and you move forward. But I think it's a challenge. There is the way that Neil Olshey left this roster, it's messy and there's no clean way out. So whoever you end up trading CJ for, whoever you end up trading Norm for, has to complement what is going to be left behind. And that is quite a challenge, because those are big money contracts and veterans. And you really have to hit on both of those trades. And I don't know that those are necessarily super easy things to do. And combining them together is like $50 million. And that's a lot of money to trade out to make it happen. So you're getting into a very large trade for the $50 million portion of the program. So if it's keep Dame and Ant, it brings up another question. This was asked by Greg H. and Mickey. Mickey asks, Ant and CJ look great together today on the court and seem to gel pretty well. Is there a world where we build around Ant and CJ and trade Dame? And Greg, this is Greg H. We got 2 Gregs in this episode. This is Greg H. Kind of just pitched like maybe the Blazers should trade Dame and maybe it's time. And I I don't want to spend too much time on this because there's an episode waiting in your feed. Nate Duncan was on the show. We recorded it last Saturday, posted in the feed last Sunday. So it was Monday show, the first show of this week. His name's in the title. You can find it. Go look in your feed. Go look on YouTube. We talked all about this sort of. He's in favor of trading Dame now. I'm maybe a little bit hesitant to do it, but there's a case to be made for it because the Blazers' path to being a championship level team with Damian Lillard on the roster is very challenging, as we just laid out. Like, it's really challenging when these are your best parts and you got to move forward. And if you trade Dame, you can kind of have a full reset. You can get this, a boatload of picks and some players and maybe reset. But, and I want to say this as a big capital B but, like this makes me nervous. It's the teardowns are rarely from trading. When you trade a player as good as Dame, you are looking to get back a player as good as Dame in the future. Do I project Anfernee Simons to be one of the 10 best players in the league? I do not. I absolutely do not. That's not a knock on Anfernee Simons. It's just that there aren't a lot of those dudes. In fact, I think that the top 15 players in the league are there's a pretty wide margin from those top 15 to the next 40. And then from the next 40 to the next literally 500 anywhere on the globe, playing in Europe and everywhere else, extremely flat. But those first 65 spots are pretty competitive. There's a huge gap between 15 and then the next 40. And then there's a smaller but pretty big gap between from those 40 to the next huge number of folks. And those are all your role players. I think you just are always trying to get one of those top 15 guys. The Blazers have him. He was that good last year. I think you can kind of talk yourself into him being that good again next season when he's healthy. I think you go for it as long as you have that type of player and then figure it out from there. But admittedly, you trade Dame, you could get a huge package. You could start over. I don't project Ant and Nas and the others to sort of be that, to grow into that. Could you build a pretty competitive team with Anfernee Simons as your best player and some picks and all those things? Yeah, I think you could get back to 7th or 8th, but I think you could just roll forward and be 7th or 8th with Dame and Ant on the roster and kind of rebuild from the middle. It's no guarantee. I don't think a team that has truly torn it down to the studs has got back to sort of championship equity other than the Philadelphia 76ers. Every other team has taken some. I mean, the Warriors, I guess, are your example, and you got to hit those picks. You got to draft a Hall of Famer at 9. You got to draft a Hall of Famer in the next draft at 10. You got to draft a third Hall of Famer in the second round after that. And then those people have to commit to the team for long term. There's not a lot of easy paths forward. I'm not in favor of the teardown now because I think you can end up wandering in the desert for a very long time. And I'm comfortable with saying, let's have the Blazers wander in the desert in a couple years. But I think there is a pragmatic discussion to be had about trading Dame now. Several listeners have proposed it, and go check out the show with Nate Duncan, because I think he laid out kind of his reasoning why. And I think many of you who are in favor of it would probably find some of the logic that Nate shared to be, I don't know, is comforting the right word, but at least you could follow his line of thinking. All right, let's come back in the special delivery mailbag episode, answer more of your questions. But first, let's talk about betonline.ag, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. The Blazers have about 40 games left in their season, little less than that, 39 games left in their season, 38 games left in the season. You can bet on all of them at betonline.ag. You can bet pregame on the money line or the spread. You can bet live in game on quarter scores, on in-game props, on over-unders and lives odds as the games start. You can get all of your Trailblazers action right there on betonline.ag or any other sport you could imagine. And if you go right now to their website on your mobile device or your desktop and use the promo code LOCKEDON, when you're making your first deposit, you'll get a 50% welcome bonus. So go have a little fun and take advantage of this offer. That's BetOnline, where the game starts. All right. Let's keep it rolling on this glorious special delivery mailbag. This next question comes from Greg K and Dr. J. Both of them ask the same type of question. We're just going to combine them into one. The question reads as follows. This is Dr. J's words, but Greg K asks a similar question. I know Ant is better than Nas right now, but given the depth we have at guard, if you had to give one of the two youngsters away, who is more valuable to this team's immediate future, Nas or Ant? I think those are different questions. More valuable to the team's immediate future is Anfernee Simons. He's a better basketball player. You need his scoring. You need his offense. He's really freaking good. His ceiling is higher than Nassir Little's right now. he's better than Nas, and I project him to be better than Nas moving forward. I project him to be just like be a better basketball player than Nassir Little. I project them both to be probably NBA starters. Just Ant could be a guy who like flirts with multiple All-Star games because he can really friggin' score, and scoring is the most valuable skill in the league. And he's developing some playmaking skills, et cetera, et cetera. Like Anfernee Simons has the star skill set. Will he become like a long-term multi-time All-Star? Probably not, right? Like, it's always safe to bet against guys making all-star teams. It's very hard to do that. But he could be a star in this league. He's more valuable to the short term and to the near term. However, as we just laid out in the first segment, the Blazers have a glut of guards, and perhaps the path forward is to trade the guard with the highest upside who will get you back the sort of the biggest fish in return. Maybe it makes more sense to trade Ant because Nas fits the plan. Like, he's only 6'5", but he's got long arms and he rebounds like a power forward. If he can get his shot right, his rebounding ability and just his freak athleticism and his motor make him a really nice fit moving forward as a 3 or an undersized 4. I think he's mostly a small forward now, but he can definitely play 4. I used to kind of think him as only as a 4, but now he has a little bit of off the dribble juice, and now I think he's a 3. So I think like it might make more sense to keep Nas, but that means that Ant has more value both as a tradable part, as I believe my friend Chuck called it equity to improve the team. As he's got a little more equity to improve the team, and perhaps that his lack of fit next to the team star player, or somewhat wonky fit next to this team star player, makes you think twice about how you do that. Next question comes from Scott at ScottPTB30, who asks, what level of player would you need in return to include Anfernee Simons in a deal? See how that works out. Would it be Jeremy Grant, Miles Turner, Jaylen Brown, Ben Simmons, or Theo Pinson? Theo Pinson's gonna be hard to come by. I don't know if you're gonna squirrel Theo Pinson out of there. Theo Pinson and Reggie Bullock are teammates on the Dallas Mavericks. Go Tar Heels. Two all-timers. Theo Pinson, though, national champion. Yeah. Jeremy Grant, I probably wouldn't trade Anfernee Simons for. Miles Turner, I would not trade Anfernee Simons for. Jaylen Brown, I would. Ben Simmons, I would, depending on the pick haul. But if it's just like an Ant and CJ, yes, I'm doing that. I'm doing it. Sorry. Jaylen Brown in a heartbeat. I do not even think about it. Like, you're projecting Ant at his peak, something like, something as good as Jaylen Brown, like a dude under 25 who's made an all-star team. But Brown is 6'6". He can really defend. He can score. He's like the exact type of wing everyone's after. Give me a cajillion Jaylen Browns. And if Anfernee Simons nets you someone as good as Jaylen Brown, that's a hell of a deal. Next question comes from Tyler Cornwall at Tyler Cornwall 31, who asks, Nas has had a really nice year as a starter this year. That's gone a little under the radar because of Ant playing the way he has. What skill or skills would Nas need to improve to feel comfortable as a full-time starter next season? This is shooting. Shooting is the number one thing he has to improve. If he can be a league average shooter, and the league average this year is dropped down to like 35%. But so I'm saying, like, if Nas is like a 36+% shooter, is above average shooter on the wing. Last year was like 37% was league average. So let's just split the difference. If it's 36%, then Nas is a really, really good offensive player. If he's down below where he is now, which is in the 31-32 range, he's not as dangerous as he could be, because if he can shoot, people are going to close out on him. If they close out on him, he can attack closeouts. If he can attack closeouts, he can get to the rim. He can get fouled. He can make plays for others. Like, he's really dangerous. He's a great straight line athlete. Great. Not to quote Jay Billups, not good, great. Like, if he gets a straight line to the rim, like a full window to the rim, he is going to punish you. And perhaps like put you on a highlight reel. So the shooting opens up that skill. The next steps for Nas are being a better team defender and a ball handler, but the shooting is, offense is way more valuable than defense in the NBA, just the way it is. And if Nas were to improve as a shooter, I'd feel really comfortable about him being a starting small forward next season. He's close. He's a rotation level forward right now. And if he was a shooter, he'd be like he'd be up there, a special player. Next question comes from PDF Normal MSW. That's at Pete_normal, who asks, is the best route to avoiding the play-in while dramatically improving the team next year to trade Nurk, Rocco, and possibly CJ for the best draft picks possible before the deadline. Then hope you can package those for an all-star this summer. If no, why not? Because of the word hope, quite frankly. I think you want vets because players, I'm a players over picks guy. Like, I think players win you games, picks help you keep your job, because you get to draft a guy and then he lasts for 4 years and get to see what he develops into. Like, I understand the value of draft picks. I understand the sort of like asset accumulation of the NBA draft world. But if you're trying to be good with Damian Lillard, you need vets on the team. You don't need a handful of like middle draft picks or even like future draft picks and hoping that you can package that and something else you have for a trade in the summer. Certainly trades in the summer are easier. Teams are like, not every team is going for it in the summer. They're kind of refiguring out what they want to be, and draft picks can be more valuable to them because then their specific draft, like if they're all draft picks for the 2022 draft, it's like, hey, we've got 9, 17, and 22. It's like the Blazers aren't going to get that probably, but certainty allows for teams to be more comfortable trading because you know what you're getting. Obviously, if those draft picks don't end up in the right spot, the certainty hurts you in the end. But I don't think it's the right path forward because of the hope. I just think you want vets. If your goal is to be as good as possible with Dame next fall, I think you need NBA players that can help. I think there's a case to be made, load up on draft picks and just go young and see if Dame and Ant can shepherd in a new era. And like, if you believe in Dame being good for several seasons, which I don't think is crazy to think he has 2 more years as like a top 15 player in the league. I do not think that's a crazy thing. Like, he can really shoot it when he's healthy. Shooting is a skill that ages. I don't think that's wild. I think Dame got hurt once and we've aged him 10,000 years. He was so freaking good last year. There's really a very reasonable path for him to be that good again next year. It's why I'm in favor of holding on to him. But I guess it's why some are in favor of trading him, because he's going to get worse immediately. He's aging so quickly. I think there's a case to be made for Dame and picks and Ant moving forward, go young, a new era, kind of shepherds in a new era, and you have like a bridge to the next era. But if you want to be good with Dame, which is I think what Dame wants, you need adults, you need players, you need vets who can play. Not an easy thing to do, but if that's the route, and it's like dramatically improving the team next year, to use your language, PDF normal, you need adults to do that. You don't need teens and 20-year-olds to help you get there, because for the most part, young players are bad in the league, and the hope that picks can net you an all-star is no guarantee. And I cannot recommend going into the summer with no guarantee. That seems like a way. Do you remember last July and how frustrated Damian Lillard seemed? I don't think you want to chance that one again. All right, let's come back in the third segment, answer more of your questions. This glorious special delivery mailbag. But first, let me tell you about Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar that there is. I've been eating Built Bars for years. I love them. Personal favorites are peanut butter brownie and cookies and cream. But they got something for everybody. If you're into the fruity flavors, they got raspberry, they got orange, they got strawberry. If you're into something more like mint brownie or salted caramel or the double chocolate, they got that. If you're into like seemingly everyone at the Locked On Podcast Network into the coconut brownie chunk, well, that's a limited time flavor. So you got to go to built.com and see when it's there and then strike while the getting is good. All these bars, 17 to 18 grams of protein, 130 to 180 calories, 4 to 5 grams of sugar, and only 5 grams of net carbs. All tasty, all healthy. Go get yourself some. Go to built.com. Use the promo code LOCKED15. Get 15% off your next order. That's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Still a pass first point guard. Still Mike Richmond. Still listening to Locked On Blazers. Still cruising through the special delivery mailbag. Our next question comes from Jeff V, who asks, who are your favorite TV broadcasters to listen to from opposing teams? So I'm a League Pass guy. Like, I crush League Pass. I probably watch at least the end of an NBA game every single night that I'm here in my home. And if I'm not in my home, when I was at my parents' house for a couple weeks, when you guys saw the different background on my YouTube channel, I was crushing League Pass at their house too. The games just start a little bit different times. So I have opinions about this. So let's just be positive. The ones I truly, truly love. Bulls. Love the Bulls podcast. The combination of the Bulls being really good and fun this year and Adam Amin and Stacey King on the call is as good as it gets. They are fantastic. Adam Amin is is he's a young guy. Like I think he's younger than I am. He is going to be a long time broadcaster in the world. He is so good. He has incredible versatility. Just an absolute pro. And Stacey King is fun. He's kind of goofy and wild and bonkers and loves the Bulls. Great duo, best duo in the game. The Nets with Ian Eagle and Sarah Kustok. Ian Eagle is just an absolute pro, and Sarah Kustok loves the league, loves the NBA. I love broadcasters that love the NBA, and Sarah Kustok loves the NBA. Great broadcast, strong recommend for the Nets. My third favorite is the Hornets broadcast. These aren't really in order, but they kind of are. Hornets broadcast with Eric Collins and Del Curry. Eric Collins is the play-by-play guy that you've probably seen go viral. He yells things like hum diddly dee. He's the perfect synergy for LaMelo Ball's showmanship. He goes nuts. He loves hyperlocal North Carolina references. I love hyperlocal North Carolina references. There's perfect synergy between me and Eric Collins. He's been in the game forever. Like he's been in the broadcast world for a very, very long time. He's found a perfect home with the Hornets. He rocks. And Del Curry is good balance of someone who knows the league and doesn't get too worked up, because Eric Collins is getting worked up. Maybe a bit of an acquired taste, but he's going nuts, and I love his brand of nuts. My next favorite broadcast is the Pacers. Chris Denari and Quinn Buckner. Q. They're just really good. They're just really good. They know the league really well. It's a professional broadcast. It's fun. They have the ability to like be happy about the opponents, or like not happy, but like appreciate when the opponent does something cool. I hate on a broadcast. I dislike on a broadcast when when something awesome happens and the broadcasters are like, oh, bummer. It's like, no, basketball's fun. Have fun. If the other team just did a 720 dunk, like through a flaming hoop, like you could be excited about it. It's fine. Pacers do a really good job of that. It's a really good broadcast. And finally, my fifth favorite broadcast is the Knicks. It's mostly because of Mike Breen. Like I could just give me more Mike Breen, an absolute pro. And I really like Clyde Frazier. A bit of an acquired taste, incredibly goofy and odd and bizarre, but that duo is fantastic. Give me like a noon tip off in Madison Square Garden with Breen and Clyde Frazier, and I will be extremely happy. Those are my favorites. I'm going to say this though. The Blazers broadcast is straight up one of the best in the league. The booth of Calabro and Lamar Hurd is one of the best in the league. Calabro is a pros pro, one of the truly best dudes calling the league. Golden Pipe's been calling it forever. Like, a legend in the game. And Lamar Hurd loves the NBA. Like he checks the box. He loves it. He's excited about it. He does a really good job of explaining it. Like he enjoys the league. So if you're watching the Blazers broadcast, I want you to appreciate like I didn't use them in my top league pass teams because they're my local feed. But it's really one of the best in the league. It absolutely is, would be, right here in my top 5 if I was doing the exercise a little bit differently. Next question comes from John, who asks, rank these contracts from least atrocious to most atrocious. It's John Wall, Russell Westbrook, Tobias Harris, Kristaps Porzingis, Kevin Love, CJ McCollum, and Al Horford. The least atrocious contract is Kristaps Porzingis, 2 years remaining for $32 million. He's just been a lot better this year. He started out really slow for him. He was like 1 in every 4 games he brought it. But since maybe Christmas-ish, like Kristaps has kind of figured it out. $32 million is a lot of money. But he's like a borderline all-star. He won't make it this year, but he's been good. I was really down on KP, and I have grown to appreciate him much more. Dallas Mavericks were honorable mention. 3-man booth, which I don't love, but a good broadcast. The sixth least atrocious is CJ McCollum. He's overpaid probably by 30%, but he's also really good. Like he provides individual scoring is really valuable. He's really good. Fifth least atrocious, Kevin Love, 2 years, $31 million. Kevin Love's like he contributes on a good team. I think other places his contract is probably worse than CJ McCollum's, but for like, I'm in context of the Cavs, he fits what they want to do. He lets them play big all the time, and he's like settled into being a role player. He contributes. Fourth least atrocious is Al Horford. I know Al Horford has sucked with the Celtics. Like I am aware, but I still believe. I feel like he was good for the Oklahoma City last year. I feel like in a better situation or just different situation, he could be good again. Maybe Father Time caught up with him. But I still believe, I really do. The third most atrocious contract is John Wall. I don't know what to do with John Wall. Like, he's definitely the best point guard on the Houston Rockets right now. I'm confident in saying that. They're just doing something different, and he's not playing. He shouldn't. 44 million is a lot for John Wall. It's like a lot. But I think he could, like, it's a bad contract. That's why it's third in the list, but he could help the Rockets. Like, he's not an NBA player. Russell Westbrook is the second most atrocious person on this list at 2 years, 44 million after this season. Yeah. He's been terrible this year. He was pretty good at the second half of the season with the Wizards, and I was kind of waiting for him to have that thing happen with the Rockets too. Like, first half of the year, unplayable, then they kind of figured it out. But they did something really specific to figure out with Houston. The Wizards last year, they kind of figured it out, and Russell Westbrook was good the second half of the season with Washington. He doesn't fit at all with the Lakers, and he's like real bad, and he is so stubborn that he'll never figure out why he's so bad. One of the worst contracts in the league. And I think really maybe the worst contract in the league is Tobias Harris. He's just paid, he's being paid like a max player. And he's even, like, right now, he's the third best player on Philly. And if Ben Simmons was back, he'd be the fourth best player. That might be rude, but I'm a big Seth Curry and Tyrese Maxey believer. I straight up think I'm going to say this right here. I think Seth Curry is better than Tobias Harris. Sorry, that's maybe a really hot take. Maybe I'm perhaps closing this show with one of my hottest takes, but I really do think that's true. I am not a Tobias Harris believer in any way. He's fine. He should make something like 200% less money. Should be like a $12 million a year guy, because he's good, but he's a role player who can score. I'm not a believer. Worst contract on this list. Final question of the show comes from Skateboard C. That's at Thrift Poppy on Twitter, who asks, if you could bring back any Blazer jersey from the grave for the current Blazers, which would it be and why? Okay, there's only two that came to mind. One is the debut jersey in red. It's the jersey in red with the script on it. It's the jersey's white. The script is red. I'm screwing you up here, but the script is red. It says Portland with that swooping underline. It's what they wore in 1970. Just Google Blazers 1970 jersey. It rocks. It's an all-timer. But the one that you bring back is the one that they wore from the championship season in 1977 until 1991. I want to see it in black or in red, preferably in black. It's the all lowercase Blazers with the sash. I mean, that's just the best jersey they've ever had. The Blazers have had consistently some of the best jerseys in the league. That's maybe one of the best. I think maybe the script Chicago Bulls is like my favorite jersey ever. But that jersey is one of the best jerseys of all time in the history of the sport. And they keep kind of bringing it back. But just listen, I know some of y'all who listen to this podcast work for the Portland Trail Blazers. I know it. Bring back that jersey. That's what we all want. Tell Nike. I know Nike does it and then you okay it, but for 25 years, the Blazers had great jerseys. Just do it again. Lowercase font on the front with the sash. Keep it simple. Make a cajillion dollars. Just do it. Just do it. That was a Nike pun that I ended this with. That is going to do it. That just did it. In fact, for this here marvelous mailbag, what do I call this? Special Delivery Mailbag episode. If you want to get involved in a future one, at Mike G. Rich on Twitter or lockedonblazerspod@gmail.com are the two ways to do it. We got shows next week. For the eagle-eared listener, this is not an episode that included Jason Quick. He's going to make his return next week. Lamar Hurd of the Trailblazers Broadcasting is going to be on the show next week. We're going to have a whole bunch of fun. Tell your friends, make it your first listen every single day. Make us part of your routine, and then tell your friends to do the same. If they like the Trailblazers, they'll like this podcast. I'm confident in it. Thanks for listening. Appreciate you. Talk to you soon.